Hello everyone, and welcome to another Global Center class. My name is John, and today I'd like to talk to you about a very interesting subject. Now, in the history of mankind, there have been many explorers who have braved the unknown, traversed treacherous terrain, and discovered new lands. Only a few can match the accomplishments of Leif Erikson, Ernest Shackleton, and Marco Polo. In this video, we'll take a closer look at their lives and legacies. First, Ernest Shackleton was a British explorer who led 3 expeditions to the Antarctic in the early 1900s. But it was his ill-fated, most famous 3rd expedition that would make his legacy as one of the greatest explorers of all time. Second explorer, Marco Polo, was an Italian merchant and explorer who lived in the 13th century. He was best known for his travels to the east, where he spent many years in service of the Mongol Empire. But perhaps the most remarkable or amazing of all was Leif Erikson, the Viking explorer who was believed to have been the first European to ever set foot in North America. Now, Leif Erikson was born in Iceland in the late 10th century. He was the son of Eric the Red, another Viking explorer who made the first Norse settlement in Greenland. Leif grew up in a family of adventurers, and he also had his father's spirit of exploration and discovery. According to old Icelandic stories, Leif Erikson set out on a voyage to explore new lands in the early 11th century. He sailed westward from Greenland, hoping to find a land that had been seen by a Norwegian explorer named Bjarni Herjolfsson some years earlier. After sailing for several days, Leif and his crew reached a place they called Vinland, which is believed to be somewhere today, Newfoundland or Labrador in Canada. Leif and his crew spent some time exploring Vinland, which they found to be a fertile and bountiful land with lots of fish and animals. They built a small settlement there and stayed for several months, trading with the local native people and learning their ways of life. Now, Leif named the place Vinland, which means land of wine in Old Norse, after the wild grapes that grew there. His voyage to Vinland was a remarkable achievement, as it made him the first European to reach North America, more than 500 years before Christopher Columbus. Leif's voyage also marked the beginning of Norse Viking exploration of North America, which continued for several decades after his journey. Although Leif Erikson's voyages were not widely known outside Scandinavia until much later, today he is now recognized as an important historical figure who played a very important central role in the early exploration of North America. His story has been celebrated in many different ways, including a statue of him in Reykjavik, Iceland, the capital, and Leif Erikson Day in the United States, which takes place every year on October 9th. Our next explorer is Sir Ernest Shackleton. Now, Ernest Shackleton was do you remember? A British explorer who is best known for trying to cross the continent of Antarctica on foot during the early 20th century. Shackleton was born in Kilkea, Ireland in 1874, and he grew up with a passion for adventure and exploration. In 1901, Shackleton joined another explorer, Robert Falcon Scott's discovery expedition to Antarctica, where he proved himself to be a capable and resourceful explorer. In 1907, he led his own expedition to Antarctica on board the ship Nimrod, where he achieved many accomplishments, including climbing Mount Erebus and reaching a new record for the southernmost latitude at the time. However, Shackleton's most famous expedition was the Imperial Transantarctic Expedition, which he led in 1914. The goal of the expedition was to cross Antarctica on foot, but the expedition had a number of disasters that would test Shackleton's leadership and determination to the max. In January 1915, Shackleton's ship, the Endurance, became trapped in pack ice. And after months of being battered by the ice, the ship was eventually crushed and sank. Shackleton and his crew were left stranded on the ice floes, and they were forced to survive for several months in freezing conditions before they were able to launch their lifeboats and make their way to Elephant Island. From there, Shackleton and a small group of men set out in one of their lifeboats on a dangerous journey across the Southern Ocean to South Georgia Island, where they hoped to find help. After surviving several terrifying days at sea, they finally reached South Georgia. But they still had to cross the island's tricky and dangerous terrain to reach civilization. After several more weeks of hardship and danger, Shackleton was able to make contact with a whaling station and call for rescue for the rest of his crew. Now, surprisingly, despite the many setbacks, hardships, and problems they faced, Shackleton and his men all survived the ordeal. Shackleton's leadership during the expedition was widely praised, and he became known for his ability to inspire and motivate his men, even in the face of extreme danger. He was also known for his determination and resourcefulness, which allowed him to overcome and beat seemingly impossible challenges and achieve his goals. Now let's talk about our final explorer, Marco Polo. Marco Polo was a Venetian merchant and explorer who lived in the 13th century. He is most famous for his travels to China and his book, The Travels of Marco Polo, which is one of the most famous travel guides in history. Marco was born in 1254 in Venice, Italy. His father, Niccolo Polo, was also a merchant who traded in the Middle East, and in 1260, Niccolo and his brother Maffeo traveled to China and met the Mongol Emperor Kublai Khan. They were impressed by Kublai Khan's court and his hospitality, and they returned to Venice to gather more goods, items, to trade in China. In 1271, Niccolo and Maffeo set out on their second journey to China. But this time, they took Marco with them. They traveled overland through Central Asia and arrived in China 4 years later, 1275, where they were welcomed again by Kublai Khan. Marco Polo was only 21 years old at this time, and he spent the next 17 years in China, working as a diplomat and a trader for Kublai Khan. He traveled throughout China as well as to other parts of Asia, such as India and Tibet. He learned several languages, including Chinese and Mongolian, and he also became a trusted advisor to Kublai Khan. Finally, in 1292, Marco Polo returned to Venice, bringing with him many treasures and stories from his travels. But he was captured by the Kingdom of Genoa during a war between Venice and Genoa. And while he was in prison, he wrote his famous book, The Travels of Marco Polo, together with a fellow prisoner. The book described his travels throughout Asia and provides a fascinating sight into the customs and cultures of the people he encountered. The Travels of Marco Polo became an instant bestseller and was widely read throughout Europe. But many people did not believe the book's descriptions of the exotic places and people that Marco Polo encountered. And some even doubted that he had actually traveled to China at all. However, in the centuries that followed, many years later, Marco Polo's records were proved right by other travelers and historians. And his book remains today an important historical document. Also, in addition to his travel writing, Marco Polo is widely known for introducing new foods and products to Europe. He brought back spices, silk, and porcelain from China, and these goods became highly prized in Europe. He also introduced Europeans to new food, such as pasta, which he may have discovered in China and brought back to Italy. Wow, you've all done such a great job listening and learning about these three great explorers. But now it's time for us to do a worksheet about today's topic. First, I want you to complete the short gap-fill sentence and share your answers together with your friends. After you finish sharing with your friends, I want you to next, please complete this word search and find the key words from today's topic. Great job today, everybody. Thanks for watching, and we hope to see you again one day at the center. Take care, and goodbye.